All right, we're back, and now we are on part 8. We started, and I had to take a little break, so I figured I'd come, and this won't be a very long stream, but I wanted to jump in. I want to remind everybody, if you're just tuning in, we are doing a collage using the Cleveland Museum of Art Open Access Collection, all public domain imagery provided by the Cleveland Museum of Art for our digital collage project in, wow, Photoshop. Also, I have the chat window up, so if you have any questions, if you're watching this live, you want to jump on in. Remember, if you like what you are hearing and you want to hear more of my wonderful, fancy demonstrations using Photoshop and other game design tools, please subscribe, follow, like, tell your friends, whatevs. All right. So when we left off, I had just was working on this angel. I'm going to sneeze. This is horrible. Thank goodness I'm using a actual one of those shields. What is that? Yeah, Pop Guard. Yeah, Pop Guard is now covered in. No, it's not. I was pretty good. All right, so let's come over here and take a look at what we've got. We've got this beautiful angel. I'm going to make sure I'm on the angel level. I'm on the angel sun level, even though the sun is gone. I have deleted the sun, which is terrible, but I didn't want it, so it's gone. And now I'm going to come around here, and we're going to finish cutting out the angel. We are going to finish cutting out the angel. We are going to cut out the vase, and we are going to position the vase and the angel once and for all. That is what we're going to do in this video. All right. It's already a nice round bowl cut. Again, if you're here and you're watching, do say hello. I'd like to know I'm not alone. I'm never alone. I have you, the internet. All right, let's go around here and get rid of that wonderful. I mean, get rid of it. We're going to keep that wonderful little colic there, right? Or bangs or whatever that is. You have no idea what this is supposed to look like, right? But it's a little tuft of hair. Da, da, da. This is probably going to be the most difficult thing I have to cut in this video. That and the nose. This is a great engraving, by the way. It really is. The lines, they're not always perfectly thick, but they are very, clear enough. I mean, even when they get thin, it's not a matter of guesswork. I guess they say is these lines really seem to have purpose. They seem very determined to create shape, and that's kind of nice. Versus when you get to a different type of drawing or engraving, and you're like, where is that begin? Where is it end? It's got that real organic feel, and this very precise feel really does lend itself to making making really nice, tight, cuts around the area. Yeah, look at that. So much fun. And I'm not being sarcastic. It really is so much fun. It really is nice to come over here and go, I've got a good clean image. I've got a good clean vision. I'm making these nice, demarcations here, and that's going to allow me to come over here. And this is just the way I do it when I come up, so I can see where it is. And now I'll zoom out because I just do this because I like the reveal. Boom, right? And again, little bit of stuff here and there is not going to kill me. Again, I want it to be slightly organic. Slightly organic. I don't want. Oh, thank God. See, I can come over here and do every feather, but if you look, they haven't really done every feather. They've created this sort of thing there where they're like, no, it's the feathers are on the wing, so they actually do kind of show the wing, right? There's the wing. There's the wing. Now the wing is cut off, and we're gonna take advantage of that in a second, which is very, very fun when you see how I take advantage of the wing being cut off. I'll start over here and do that. Yay, cut off wing. And then now I am gonna have to dip into here because they did dip into here. And I'm gonna get them around nice and carefully. Dun, dun. Come around here And it'll just start becoming a little bit easier because they're going to become like a little bit bigger. And again, when I make that mistake and I have to hit the backspace key, I don't want it to feel frustrating. That's why I kind of keep my hand on the backspace key. I keep my hand on the backspace key so that when I'm, if my hand is all the way off to the side of my keyboard and I have to hit the backspace key, then I'm like, did I make a mistake? I feel like I made a mistake. I feel like I'm correcting myself. But if I have my hand near that backspace key and I have to undo and just unpin for a moment, it doesn't feel as bad. It feels like it's just part of the process. That 2 steps forward, 1 step back is still 1 step forward, and that's the way this kind of works when you're doing this type of work. So don't be afraid of doing that, because again, if I hands off to the left and I have to press it, then I kind of feel like I've wounded myself by making a mistake versus it being just part of the process. And I like it being just part of the process because it is part of the process. All right, delete that. Bam. Look at that. I could probably get in here a little bit more and do a little bit more. I'm gonna do it just to show you that I could. I'm not gonna need to, and I'll explain why in a moment. But what I do need to do is I need to get into that negative space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negative spaces for me to correct. So let's zoom in. And we're going to zoom in tight because there's no reason not to. And we're going to take each of these spaces as a separate space. We're not going to freak out about it. We're just going to kind of come around and connect the dots that aren't really there. And understand that if we make a mistake, we make a mistake. All right, so that looks pretty good. All right, that's 1. Slide to the left. All right. Got to start with the right spot. Ooh, look at that. Because I'm doing all of this work with the polygonal lasso tool, again, we're working with the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm using the backspace key, I do want to point out that I have a really nice gaming keyboard. Not because I do really nice gaming, it's just when I'm coding, I really like that really big, travel, loud click. And it makes me very happy. However, it makes me sound angry. So when I do have to click on the keyboard and it goes click, it sounds like I'm wailing on the keyboard. I am not wailing on the keyboard, but when coding, it makes me there's something very satisfying about, this, a keyboard type sound. It makes me feel like I'm doing it. It probably also, see, there's that really loud, I'm not slamming it as loud as it sounds. But when I'm coding and I'm doing those loud clicky travels, what's also nice is it prevents stray bits of code. My keyboard, I know based on the feedback I'm getting from my keyboard, I go based on the amount of pressure I need to put on the keyboard, that all the decisions I'm making are purposeful, and that's really important to me. That's also why this mouse is a fairly loud click as well. Now the microphone may or may not be picking it up too loudly, but trust me, these are hella clicks. And the only part where I have to guess, because it's kind of transparent, but you know what? I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to make it so that it just kind of smooths around. And that's nice there. So if I had to in the future, I could actually go through and recreate these lines. That's what's fun about engravings is there's so many lines of so many thickness, of so many values, thicknesses, and things that, and even curves and straight, that if you really wanted to fix a gap in a line, you could do so organically without just drawing in a solid color or trying to draw in a solid color and ornamenting it with some sort of a faded area so that it actually matched. All right, and booyah. Look at that. There we go. That's nice as well. Now I've got 3 more areas. We'll do the little ones first. And again, we're not worried about the fact that it's faded, that fade or that shading. Some of that shading is on purpose. Some of that shading is by mistake or just, age and time. So we do have, again, a little bit of flexibility here as long as we remember what the goal is. right? The goal is not perfection. We keep saying that. The goal is, does it look good? Is it convincing? Does it tell the story I want to tell? And are you open for the happy accidents? Because a lot of times there are just happy accidents where you're going to look at it at this level and say, this just looks wrong, but you're going to have to back up a little bit and really see what's going on, right? So let me back up a little bit, for instance, and like I would have not been happy there, but I think I am. Yeah. Like I probably, no, I could probably come in here a little bit more, and I want to come in here a little bit and start to create just a little bit more curvature there. Because again, that's sort of a throwaway junkier area, and that's going to make a nice little bit there. Now this one's going to be slightly tricky because I'm creating a very, very shallow path between these two, almost like a figure 8 here of negative space. I didn't want to go all the way through because I knew that it wouldn't necessarily it would get really kind of close. So let's take a look at how close I can get, because believe it or not, when I come over here like this, it may be fused. It may look like a path, but it may actually have been fused there, and we'll see. Either way, like that right there, there's a teeny bit in there, and I don't know if I'm going to get it or not, because I don't know if I should get it or not. That is the funny part. So if I come here like this, I got a tiny little sliver that I can delete out of there, and that looks pretty good, and we'll know more when I pull out. And then come back up here, dot. Oops. Gotta find the right starting spot. And again, that's why I have that's why I'm on the escape key or on the back, when I start, or on the backspace key. Like, I'm not afraid of using the supplemental keyboard commands that you really need to use to make this thing work. It can be a two-handed approach. I know a lot of people on here are gamers, so that's not going to be a surprise. They use the mouse and the keyboard literally at the same time. But I'm talking about Photoshop and not, necessarily playing a game. So not everything easily, transfers from one experience to the other. So you basically want to think about Photoshop as you would your video games, where you're sitting here going, there are things you're going to click, there are things that you're going to keyboard command, there are things that you're going to, and again, it all boils down to the fact that there's more than one way of doing it. If you are watching this and you're thinking to yourself, man, I have a better way, that's fine. But I'm teaching somebody a foolproof way. Like, I kept trying to use some of the other tools, and there will be a time and a place for those other tools, but nothing. Like, you are literally, when you're working with the polygonal lasso tool, you can zoom in as far as you want. You can take your time, which again is the best part. The hand-eye coordination here is not time-based. You do need to have hand-eye coordination, but because I can let go, I literally can, I can just crack my knuckles. I can stop for a moment, and I'm still mid-selection. I'm going to take a swig of this root beer. I'm still mid-selection without a problem. I come back over here, and that's what I really want to encourage people to do, is to use the polygonal lasso tool to get them to take their time. Any of the painterly tools, whether they're the paint brushes or the erasers or the lasso tool, those things are really time-based. And I always joke, the slower you get, the more your hand shakes, so the slower you get, the worse it looks. What you need is that wonderful, smooth ability to just go start and stop, and that is not something... Oops, I have not closed it. Let me close it. That is not something that I am masterful with, but this is something I am masterful with. Look, isn't that great? I'm so happy with the way that looks. So let's take a bigger picture approach. The bigger picture approach is going to be very helpful here, because when I come all the way out, magnifying glass fit screen. What is that? It's just an artifact, I think. I don't know why that's on the screen. That is weird. I don't know what that is. I think that literally is an artifact of something here. So I'm going to hit save real fast. And again, if in doubt, you always want to be careful, because Photoshop can have memory leaks. Matter of fact, I'm streaming and recording and using Photoshop, so all sorts of memory leaks can probably happen. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to reopen it. Now you got to be careful because what I just did was very dangerous. You're like, well, what's so dangerous? You saved it, you closed it, reopened it. What's the big deal? What the big deal is I lost my history. That's I just cleared my history, but I think I'm okay. I think that what I did didn't take too long, and everything looks like it's supposed to. And now that thing is gone, which is what I want it to be. I'm going to go back to hit fit screen, and I've got to ask myself, I'm looking at the angel, and I'm looking at really two different issues that I have. Issue number one is that this wing is cut off, and issue number two is that this hand is cut off. So if I want to not have to worry about the wing, I'm just going to literally bring it up. So it's gone off of the screen, which is great. It takes care of that. So I'm done. Then I'm going to look at this again and go, what am I really... I think this angel needs to be bigger. I'm actually going to do a compositional element, and I'm going to bring it bigger. Now, here's what's really funny. So I have been forever in the old versions of Photoshop, up till Photoshop 2019. If you want to scale something, you hit Control T, and then if you want to make sure that you constrain your proportions so that you don't warp the image, because remember, you don't want to warp an image, you would hold the Shift key down. Well, for their infinite wisdom, they've reversed this. So if I hold the Shift key down, it squashes and stretches. But, and I'm going to undo and hit Control T again, if I don't hold the Shift key down, it literally forces the aspect ratio. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is brilliant. The idea being that the resize tool automatically locks the aspect ratio and that you have to override it not to makes a lot of sense. But that's great for the new people. But for the people that have been doing this for 20 plus years, then all of a sudden you're like, it's been reversed, folks. It's going to take some time to get used to. I guarantee you I'm going to start warping images by mistake. So I don't need to hold the Shift key down. I just need to make it resized. And by the way, it's funny because other programs do this as well. They already have done it. That's too far. But there's something interesting about this because you see, if I do it like this, when I do go to modify this, I can even have like this can go up there. So I like that it's bigger. I kind of like where I've put it. I know that I've cut the wing off. I'm happy with that. I got to put there's the sun. So I want to make sure I'm kind of giving a feel for where things are going. All right, good. So that layer's in place. Now I need to put the vase back in, or the vase back in. So I'm going to put the vase back in, and now I realize where my hand is. So now I can zoom in because that's going to make all the difference, right? And I need to figure out where this is going to go. Now, a lot of this is going to be dependent on what happens when I cut it off. And by I cut it off, I mean when I cut it out. If I want a sort of a preview of this, I could literally go to the opacity of my level, and I could lower the opacity so I can kind of see where the hand is and go, uh-oh, if that's where the hand is and that's where the vase is, then I'm going to have to come over here and do that. Notice, by the way, it's kind of popping into place. That's because as I'm moving things around, I have the snap to guides and document bounds and layers. I have all the snaps turned on. If I turn the snap off, because my snap was turned off, by the way, remember in our first tutorial or second tutorial, I told you to turn the snap off, but I've upgraded Photoshop since then. So one of those weird little bits is that snap has been turned on. So now I can come over here and I can decide that this is what I want to do. I could actually move it even further over, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to leave it just like that. That looks pretty good. Now, I've got two more things I want to do before I finish up this layer, this tutorial for tonight. So I need to cut this out. Now, am I going to try to use the polygonal lasso tool again? Not the polygonal lasso tool, the quick selection tool. I'm on the vase, and I start to paint, and no, it didn't work. Because literally it grabbed everything. I come over here, I'm on the vase, I start to paint, and it just grabbed everything. Like, it is not happy. So quick selection tool on the vase is not going to work. Or maybe I'm taking the wrong approach. I'm going to try it again. And by the way, I'm not canning these demos. This is a real piece that I'm building. I'm making this up as I go. I'm talking through everything that I'm doing. I'm using the skills that I have, but again, I'm applying them in ways that I'm not really ready for. So I'm not necessarily canning every little aspect of this. What if I use the quick selection tool to try to grab the vase and not the negative space? Let's see if this works. You know, the vase is, no, it didn't. I was thought it was going to be perfect. So exciting. All right, so let's try the other way around. Let's try the magic wand tool. If I grab the magic wand tool, now that worked. Let's take a look. Okay, we've done something here, right? Right? It's not eating into the vase. A little bit into the vase. Now it's eating into the vase. Ah, poopy. Now it's eating into the vase a little bit. I may have to go old school. So, yeah, because if I come over here and set the tolerance to be like 5, what you're going to find is that there are still areas that it's still not working. And if I set the tolerance to 0, where it says if it ain't black, don't do it, then you're going to get little clusters like this because it's too much. So if I set it to 3, maybe that'll work. And that's not bad, right? So if you take a look over here, but you're going to see little mistakes, and I would rather see line mistakes of cutout than organic mistakes of computer weirdness. What was that? Was that a good piece? Yeah, see, I don't like that. I want to zoom in. I'd rather show you why not to do it. Like that to me is going to be worse than any line that I'm going to draw connecting the dots. And I spent more time, by the way, on this than it would take to cut the whole thing out. But I want to make sure that you're looking at the techniques that I'm doing along the way. So we're out. We're not going to do that. And I could look at the other side and say, all right, fine, the black didn't work, but will the gray work? If I set this to 10, I mean, maybe I can use this to do part of it. And the answer is, and I'm holding the shift key down, trying to add to the selection, but it's not great. You know, if I come over here and hit delete, I'm going to do it. I'll undo it. If I hit delete, to me, that those little jagged edges there, it just feels ripped. And I don't mean ripped in a good way. It just feels ripped, and I don't want to do that. So I'm not. I'm going to go to my history, and I'm going to go backwards, and I'm going to undo what I have done, and I'm going to get in here, and I'm going to do what I have been doing. But of course, because it's nice and round, I'm not going to be afraid to zoom in. I'm going to pick a spot, and here we go. Yay. I'm going to get quiet for a second. So if you're watching, go ahead and type in the window. Say some words of encouragement. I like words of encouragement. Go, Jared, go. Or Jared went, Jared. Yeah, see, isn't that a much better line than the line I was getting? It just makes me happier to do it this way. And again, I learn new stuff. I always joke, no one knows all of Photoshop. I learn new things in Photoshop all the time. I'm not trying to tell you any sort of definitive, this is the absolute only way to do it. I would never say that. I would say this is, in my experience of teaching Photoshop, in my experience of using Photoshop, this is a satisfying, reliable way of not only doing, but remembering and building a sense of muscle memory for what you're trying to do. This is all goes towards that. There are certain tools in Photoshop which I really feel aren't conducive towards that, and people are always arguing with me, and I'm like, no, I'm not saying. I mean, when we get to color correction, people love curves. I hate teaching curves. I don't like teaching curves. Look at that. That is beautiful. Speaking of curves, that came out so nice. I'm gonna leave the bottom for a little bit. I'm gonna come over here and start over here on this shoulder of the vase. That is right. Vases have shoulders. And I think, when we do this with the vase, I think I may even have a couple other ideas of what to do to change a couple of elements on our screen. And the only reason I'm even considering going back and changing any of the elements is because I just made this element larger. I made the angel larger, moved him to a different part of the screen. So I've done a couple moments of compositional work, so I can't tell you that it's not in my mind right now that I want to go through and start taking some of these more cleaned up items and seeing if the relationships between them is exactly the way I want. And again, that's 2 lines in. Like, this is not going to be much, and I already told you that I spent more time trying to demo how to make a quick selection tool work than it would actually take to do it with the polygonal lasso tool. But I want to make sure that as we get back to there's a right place for it. Actually, this is it. This is the right place for the right job. Look at this. We've got this gray and we've got this black and we've got this nice separation here. So in theory, the quick selection tool should work. It didn't. It got too much stuff. So once again, dashed by my own extra whatever. So I'm going to hit here and say, what about this baby? Right? And I'm by the way, because I missed a bit, I'm going to hit the shift key down and hit plus again. But no, it's still eating into the black. So I'm going to come over here to tolerance. I'm going to change it to 20. I'm going to try grabbing the whole thing again. Nope, that didn't do it. But I'm going to try grabbing it from here instead. Now it's dipping too much into the black. I'm not going to be able to do it. And again, this is me demonstrating that I'm not compromising. That I'm, I'd rather. It's so easy to sit here and go, well, look, it worked. And if Photoshop says, if Adobe says that this is the self-similar blah, 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 then it's right. But that's not the way that lighting works. That's not the way that art works. It's not the way the real world works. Photoshop's tools work amazing in certain situations, but we have to acknowledge that not every situation we're in. Adobe is trying to remind me that I may or may not be kosher, but I am kosher. I can close this for now, and then I can delete that. And that's nice, not too much of a glow there. And now for the neck. All right, beautiful. So we're down to like one good cut. So let's get over here. And I keep going and going and going. Now, this one I got to be careful about. If I don't do it right, there's going to be a big black line. Now, you're like, but everywhere else was a little different. I think over here, I may not want that big black line. I'm going to try, there's going to be a little bit of a shadow line, but I probably want to make sure that as I'm cutting into it just enough that I'm not looking at this like what looks like this reminder that I was really in a different area to begin with. And I also need to make sure, again, going back to my backspace key, that I'm close enough to be able to keep making this organic curve, which sometimes I can see and sometimes I'm sort of feeling for, where you're sitting here going like, I get this curve. I get where they're going. And that's really important as well. All right. So delete that. Now we have a precision item, and there's very much something going on here with that vase and that angel, which I'm loving. But what are they doing, right? We've got the dragon up here, right? So we look over here, we've got this dragon, and he's oops, let me get the move tool. He's not a fire-breathing dragon. He's a cloud-breathing dragon, right? And we can even decide whether we're going to put the big one up towards the mouth and get smaller, to get this idea of dimensionality. And we might do it that way. But then the question is what's going on over here and why over here, right? Right now there's a thing. So I may actually grab my angel, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to also grab my vase, so they're locked together. Yay! And I may move them a little bit further away so that there's, now I have to worry about the feet being free, that there's something over here, and I'm thinking what could be dripping, and what could be dripping is the flowers. I could have the flowers dripping. Now, of course, when I have the flowers dripping, I may need to actually come over here and rotate this more. Notice I hold the shift key down again to try to get those two together. The problem is that at some point I'm going to rotate it too much. So the angel may work this well, but not necessarily the vase. But if I come over here and just try to rotate the vase, you got to click away, by the way. If I try to rotate the vase, it'll look really, really weird if it's like this. So there's a point of I'm trying to get it to be tilted. I don't want it to be tilting up, but I've got to ask myself how far tilting I can make it where it'll still look realistic, or not realistic, but where it still matches what the aesthetic that I'm going for. Again, it goes back to the aesthetic that I'm going for. So I'm going to come over here, Control T, and when I click on the outside in a free transform, anywhere on the outside allows me to rotate freely and to even move. So I can move and rotate. Remember, I don't have a hand there, so I've got to ask myself what I can do. I don't want to go straight in line because then it looks like he's like some sort of a bazooka arm, and that isn't quite what we're looking for as well. I need it to be convincing that somehow it's sort of in or behind his hand and how far I can go. Also, you want to be thinking about sort of like the relationship here as well between the face and whatever. The reason I say this is that if I lift it straight up, if I were to move both pieces straight up and the vase is straight up, then it doesn't feel like I'm pouring. So you want to make it kind of feel like, well, let me explain. If I were to come over here, grab these two, and then bring them all the way standing straight up, right? Well, if this guy is standing straight up, which he's not yet, if this guy's standing straight up, then the question is that vase tilted? And the answer is not really, not enough, right? So I'd have to come over here and then tilt the vase. Oops, got to click away first. You got to only be on one layer. And if I come over here and tilt the vase, well, over here it feels like it's his arm, right? That doesn't work. And then you've got to ask yourself, where is it tipped from? Do I want it to be right over here? I could do it almost like a... like, again, it's still part of the arm, or I could do it like this, where it's sort of a very tippy feel. And when you look at them standing up, it feels very different. Now, if I go back to the angel, if I do select both layers at the same time and rotate it, and again, we're just doing an exercise in doing this. It was very funny. I think my hand hit the, my elbow hit the escape key, right? Now, if I go back and do something similar to what I was doing before, well, now you get a real sense that this is tipping. And again, I did this by figuring out what was going on here, by figuring out the relationship of them standing up and then orienting them in the other direction. Notice that, by the way, that the angel is much more tilted. And then we've got this. Now, when I put this here, it feels like they're falling. Right? We don't know where they're falling. We don't know how the relationship was to the unicorn. We just know the unicorn. So I'm going to come over here like this. So the unicorn is being assaulted, but the angel is dropping it onto the dragon. So we've got sort of this fight going this way and this fight going this way, and that really is a lot better than what I'm looking for. I'm also going to come and zoom back in to make sure that I haven't made any mistakes with my with the relationship between the hand and the vase. If I want to do this without necessarily moving things around, I am going to go back to the vase and change the opacity just to see where that broken hand is. And we're fine. We're nowhere near it. Don't forget to change it back. Nothing ruins a collage than enormous amounts of opacity changes. And the only reason I say that is that while it covers blemishes, it really does blend and blur in a muddy sort of way. It's not a very great solution to a problem. So what do we got? What else do we need to move? So I've got these guys here, which I feel better about. I still have my dragon. Oops, that's not my dragon layer. Undo. I still have my dragon breathing, breathing these things, which of course I'm going to literally look at these angles here. I'm going to seriously slide things up and look at the angles. And then I'm going to do this one. I'm going to slide things up and look at the angles. And you have to ask yourself, are these two different enough? Are these different enough? And the answer is not really. I mean, these are pretty much the same. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cheat. Oops. I'm going to cheat. Which cloud is this? This is cloud 4. I'm going to cheat. And I have no problem with cheating because there is similar enough. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take cloud 1 and I'm going to duplicate the layer. Bam. And I'm going to move it over here. And then I'm going to take, and I'm going to resize it. And that's going to be fun for me. Because when I resize it just a little bit, and it's on the same angle, it's going to look a little bit different. And then I'm going to take cloud 1 copy, which I should have renamed and I didn't yet. And I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put this one and I'm going to make it smaller even again. And if I wanted to, I could do it by the percentages. So I can like go, oh my God, I've got the exact small, medium, and large sort of thing going on. But at the end of the day, it's not numerical that matters. It's like, how does it look? So this idea of figuring out the balance of do these feel progressively smaller? Does it feel right? And by the way, the other thing is if I'm aiming at the unicorn, I want to make sure I'm on the right, trajectory. So if I'm not on the right trajectory, then I've got to make sure that I come over here back to this dragon. So this dragon feels like it's, breathing flame, or in this case, these clouds. I also want to make sure that I'm not over the screen, because there's no reason to cut off the dragon. I like cutting off the angel. I wouldn't like cutting off the dragon. And if I don't want to cut off the dragon, I also don't want to have a margin here, because this margin might get eaten depending on what printing techniques I use, and that could be a problem. So this allows me to come over here, and I think I feel comfortable enough with these three clouds that I can use the same cloud. So I can call this one Cloud A, Cloud B, and Cloud C. And these old clouds, which I'm not going to use, I'm not going to delete them. I'm going to do layer, new, group from layers, and I'm going to call it old clouds. I'm very funny. I don't delete anything. I figure if you're building this thing, you shouldn't go too crazy. Now we have one other thing in front of us while we're on this, and again, I'm going to be wrapping this one up in a little bit, but these flowers are pretty much the same. So I've got to zoom in here and say, which of these flowers do I think is going to cut out the best? And which one do I like the best? And it goes back to this. Do I like this better than this? That's more of a broken item, and this has got more contrast to it. So I'm actually going to come over here. Yes, nice zoom in on this little flower. God, I hope it's a flower. Someone's going to message me and go, that's not a flower. But I think it is. And I've clicked it, so I'm on the right flower. And I am going to, I'm going to grab the whole thing. I'm going to do this in one big swoop. Now, again, I'm doing it in one big swoop. What I'm not doing is limiting myself to how many clicks I've got. I'm going to actually go the other way around. I'm going to sit there and say, I'm going to do this in one sitting or in one shape, but what I'm not going to do is get stingy with the clicks, because I have all the clicks in the world. There's no minimum number of clicks. I can edit that in 12 clicks. There's no contests here to see who's got the most elegant clicking. What the contest is how well you can achieve your vision and keep your sanity. And I think we can do both of those things. And I kind of come over here. Now, again, I'm making a sort of a decision with this, because I know that I can. I like this idea that I'm coming around and kind of dipping in a little bit. I think that one may be wrong, but I'm going to try it anyway, because that's what the whole exercise is again, you know what you're going to do, but you really don't know what you're going to do until you're sort of knee deep in doing it. And then you have to sort of be up for the challenge of, yep, I guess that was wrong, or yep, I meant something else. Because it's never really about failure. It's always about just changing your mind, or seeing that your original hypothesis was invalid, which again is another way of looking at this. You can't cling to this vision that is just in theory impossible, which has happened, by the way. Students have had a vision for making something, and then they found out it doesn't work, and they won't let go. Now, select inverse. So I've selected everything but the flower. I hit delete, and there's no green left. Hit Control D. Yeah, that's nice. I'm even okay with a little bit of a glow there. So I come over here, and now I'm going to take flower 1. I'm going to turn it off. And with flower 2, I'm gonna come over here and ask myself, is this flower coming out of here? And if it is, maybe it's smaller. Yeah, right. And I'm going to come over here 1, and I'm going to say duplicate layer, and then it's going to be like 2, and I'm going to say like duplicate layer, and it's going to be like 3, and it's going to duplicate layer, and it's going to be like 4, duplicate layer. No, 4 is going to be enough. And so you've got these items, these 4 items, but again, are they the right relationships? Should it be? I think it may even need to be smaller. I'm going to grab all 4, and I'm going to reduce the size of them. Obviously, it's going to reduce the locations as well. So I'm going to come over here, 1, Oops. Yeah, I always got to click away. If you've got multiple layers selected, you have to click a different layer if you're using the auto select layers so that it doesn't try to do all four at once. One, two, oops, undo. One, one, two. So now what I'm trying to do is create some sort of a parabola, some sort of a curve. One, two, three, four. So it looks like this is falling. I want to give my line of sight here. So I want to come over here so that at the end of the day, it feels like this is going to come through. You always got to be thinking about how you're connecting the dots. You always got to be thinking about that as you go. You've got to be thinking like if this is a curve, right? And it is. It's like one, two, three, right? You can almost see the curve that I'm building. And that fourth one's going to make a big difference because it's going to go straight down like that. And we'll leave these flowers for a minute, but later on we're going to start changing the colors of them so they're very, very different than the clouds, and that's going to be part of what we do. All right, now let's take a look and assess what we're up against, where we're at, what's going on, and of course we're going to hit the wonderful Control S so we save the damn thing, since we are looking at many, many hours worth of work and many, many, many gigabytes. So that's going to be the tutorial for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, please follow me, like me, friend me, tell your friends, enjoy all this type of stuff. My name is Jared Bendis. Looking again, what we have left to do, we have to trim, 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 trim. So we're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're down to trimming 8 images, but 2 of them are the same. Some of them are easier than others. We'll get to those tomorrow. We'll get back to the trimming. And then once we're done trimming, we can spend time building the backdrop a little bit, changing the colors, changing the contrast, and really building something that makes us aesthetically happy. But I'm very happy so far with what's going on up here. We've got this, this section here, and each time we do something, we're really, greatly changing what's going on. The horse coming down. And the funny part is remember, I didn't like that one spot. I can put the horse there, and now that one spot is gone. And that's a lot of why we have to be careful about what we are and aren't cropping, because I've got to decide what each of these items is doing and how that's going to affect us. So once again, thank you so much, and I will see you soon.